Beautiful. Here you are teaming up with your good Pirates buddy Johnny Depp, and he brought along after to work on your story, John Logan from Sweeney Todd. Was there? I don't know whether this was an idea that sort of came together about 4 o'clock in the morning after a few beers and Rizlas, or whether there was a much more serious intent involved.
No, it was probably the morning after the few beers, but no, it was something I was kicking around in 2003 with a good friend who's a children's book illustrator, David Shannon, and just the concept of doing a western, animated western with creatures of the desert, and I sort of wrote out a 12-page outline, talked to Johnny about it a little bit, pitched it to John Logan. He really liked this sort of identity quest angle on it, so he jumped in, and then we spent a year and a half, myself and John and 5 artists in a little house, pencil and paper, sort of image informing narrative and text informing image, and it was really lo-fi the first year and a half, then 20 days with the actors, and then a year and a half at ILM.
Well, the references, obviously Sergio Leone is in there, and you got elements of Mad Max 2 and Hunter S. Thompson and Chuck Jones, and the entire cast looked like roadkill. There's that sort of, I don't know whether there was a very kind of a definite kind of template once you've actually made up your mind, but there are certain reference points that, because you're dealing with a genre film and you're dealing with people's sort of sense memories of this genre, was it quite the sort of jigsaw? I'd say quite a large sort of references would go right through from.
Yeah, I mean, I think the film is very much a film within a film. I mean, I think you've got the sort of Mexican Greek chorus singing of the demise of the protagonist. You've got the protagonist who's an actor, very well versed in Homer and Shakespeare and Sergio Leone, and he's fancies himself a hero, quite aware of the fact that he's entering a Western genre. He's a contemporary character, sort of, fish out of water. So I think the film has many layers and very self-reflexive in that way. So it seemed like an opportunity to kind of directly celebrate archetypes and genre references.
Well, talking about self-reflective, you've got the balls to be able to actually reference your own work, because you've got this wonderful desert scene with the stranded boat, pretty much from at World's End. Was that a sort of little, because there are many little cheeky nods to other people's work, obviously, even Johnny's Hunter S. Thompson work, but that was something I'm guessing you said, well, it would be nice to sort of put this little sort of moment in.
Yeah, he's sort of the ship and the crabs.
Yeah.
And the pill bugs. Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's film is a really interesting thing because it's a language, and it's hard not to set up a camera and immediately be feeling like you're using words that might have been used, and especially in a genre so well defined as a Western. At some point you've got to sort of celebrate those moments, and even if you're trying to turn them on their head, it's impossible to completely, not hear a Morricone soundtrack, when you're setting up the gunfight.
I was reading the recent book on DreamWorks, The Men Who Would Be King, and that sort of first meeting with you and Johnny in London when you were, and actually the Disney War book as well, but just that idea that you were kind of meeting up in London to talk about this idea of the Pirates movie, and the one thing that Johnny said to you is, I think it's typical of Johnny, what can we do that will really freak the studio out, and he wanted to complete, the nose was gone, and there's all these sort of ideas of compromise, how do we get back to a usable kind of freak show that might work. Is that still the same kind of motivation? Because you grew up on Kafka and punk bands, and you've had that sort of always setting out to make small films, and they just tend to sort of get a little bit bigger sometimes with like the Mexican, or with this film I think was originally kind of a smaller film. Do you still feel like a somewhat it's your job to fuck with the mainstream, to kind of step in there and do something different?
Well, I don't know. I think it's just it's great to be at a place where you don't know what you're doing, and I think that it's probably why I didn't jump into a fourth Pirates. It's just not scary anymore. And
you should join the Irish government right now, because there's a lot of that feeling. But
yeah, well, no, it's just good that I feel like if you're not waking up in a cold sweat, not sure you're gonna be able to pull something off, then there's really no growth in it for you, and it's just there are easier ways to make a living. So if you're not kind of challenging yourself, I try to approach each project with that feeling, and certainly we had it on the first Pirates. We really thought we were mad, and it's nice to kind of jump into an animated movie, and not know what you're doing, and that's a good energy.
Well, were you surprised that well, obviously Bruckheimer was very keen for a fourth one, but most people like to leave a trilogy as a trilogy in the sense that it seems like we've said what we wanted to say, and for a lot of people, I mean, that first movie's loved, and then you get the second and third, or they're longer films, and people have their different opinions about it, but they made a huge bucket of money, of course. Yeah.
Kind.
But that notion that to go around the fourth time, cinema audiences, they sort of feel it. Well, there might be desperation involved in this, and Johnny's not a guy who goes for desperate moves. Were you surprised that a fourth one did come out of the woodwork?
No, we talked about it. I just I think it was look, I think he's really loves playing Jack.
Yeah.
I think that's the bottom line. I think Johnny loves playing Jack, and certainly I feel like the first three films had concluded that narrative of, Will and Elizabeth Turner and Will Turner and Elizabeth,
Yeah.
and I think all those characters and that narrative are were opened and closed, and then the further adventures of Jack is something I'd like to go see, but it's not something I want to spend 2.5 years doing.
Fingers crossed it doesn't suck, because Johnny's a nice guy. Well, rock and roll.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Really.